Hey guys, welcome back to another episode here at Noah's Daily Driven. In today's episode, we're going to do a little throwback. We're going to talk about some Nitro racing, so let's jump right into it. All right, guys. Hey, like I said, welcome back to the episode here. Today, we're going to dive into some of the little projects that we got going on, and in this particular subject, today is going to be about Nitro racing. So, I've talked about it a little bit before in the past. My initial introduction to racing was based off of Nitro racing, or gas racing, gas trucks. So, 29 years ago, which was run in 1996. Whew. My dad, and I mentioned this before, got us into RC racing. Now, previous to that, we in my hometown here in Ennis, we have a couple of a dirt track actually, and a drag strip. My dad used to always take us to it. Just kind of got us involved in racing, and as a young kid, I've always had the little Walmart cars that my dad bought for me. Was like the Tyco stuff, all that stuff. It was, I've always had remote control cars, and then finally one time, we're not even really sure what the thought process was at the time. My dad, we went to a little town called Corsicana, a little bit about 15 minutes south of us here, in Corsicana off of 45. There was a little hobby shop they had there. As soon as you walked in, there was a bunch of trains, a bunch of airplanes, and then in the back they had a track. It was a dirt oval track. So, I don't know what the thing was. My dad really basically wanted. His thought process was to get us into something to stay off the streets. At this time I started driving a little bit, and then in reality, back in the days, back then you were pretty much already driving to the streets and stuff, back roads, and then when you finally turn and get the license, you go down the main street. Man, that was the highlight of the life. But anyways, back then my dad decided to go to this track. You talked to this the owner and his dad. His name was Keith. So he kind of started going back and forth talking, and my dad did whatever he could for us at the time. And at the time, I guess they must have struck a deal, and they got us our first RC vehicles. Now, I think my very first car that I got, and I'm trying to remember my timelines. I think it was either like a Traxxas Stampede or something like that. I remember I got it for Christmas. But then and it might have been reversed. Then we started getting into the Nitro racing stuff. He had Nitro cars there, and I think it was more Nitro cars first. The electric stuff was still kind of barely coming in, so it might have been right there in the same time. But I remember my first gas truck was some sort of Kyosho stadium truck, and I remember my dad. He was always kind of the pit guy for us. He was always the one working on stuff. Keith was showing him how to do things, and I remember one of the things he always told him was, keep the bearings clean and stuff. So after every race, I remember my dad sitting down on the kitchen table taking apart this transmission, and it just seemed like a ton of gears. I wish I remember what brand truck that was. But then my buddy Keith, he had, I think it was a Rustler, a Nitro Rustler. He got it going around pretty good. Obviously, there were some OFNA four-wheel drive cars, buggies that were around. And then he had this gas truck. I think he was used. I think we jumped into I think it was a Losi GTX. So he got us that. We got to go around, and there was a good buddy of ours also that was there. His name was Charlie. Charlie was a boat mechanic here close to one of these towns too, in Kaufman, I believe. And he would always bring these cars over, and then these motors that he had kind of tweaked a little bit, and he brought them in, whatever. Nevertheless, we got ourselves into in it with him, and he would always give us motors, and we were driving. So we were always driving around in this loose dirt track. And then we found out one day that there was another track in Garland, Texas called NDRC World. So we go to NDRC World, and at that time, it's always been high bite from what I remembered, always. And it was so high bite that the races they had going on was on foam tires. So even previously, before we went to Indy, we did do some of the races with my buddy Keith. We went, I can't remember some of the tracks now. It's been so long. I don't remember the names. I didn't really keep up with my dad. We just took us and we were going. But we went to Indy RC World. There's a different type of racing. They had these little trucks with side dams and on foam tires. And I wish I remember all the specifics about how I came across this car that I have to this day, and it's a RC10 GT gas truck. So this right here is basically the last car that I have in that era. Now this body was a body that I bought just to basically keep it on the shelf. At the time there was another hobby shop over there called A1 Hobby, and I can't remember the fellow's name. He helped us out and sponsored us with the radio, and it was one of the first Spectrum radios, which I have it back here, that he offered to me and my brother. Me and my brother were running around racing, and then we came across this truck. And I don't remember the specifics on how I got this truck, but we got this truck. Obviously, it's set up for foam tires, and like I said, NDRC World has always been a high bite track, and we used to run these tires right here in particular. We would run Gojo on them, and these have the side dams here, and we would just run the crap out of these. And it was some really good times that I remember. And after that, there were some 8-skill late models that were in the scene. I think we got a hold of one a couple of times, and then after that, we got introduced to some off-road racing, because obviously Indy was both oval off-road. So it's always been in that way since I remember. Obviously, Indy does no longer exist. The hobby shop in Corsicana no longer exists. And a lot of the little tracks that were around at the time don't exist, but at those times it was really, really fun. And even then, some of the people that I raced these trucks with, I race to this day. So it's just crazy. So then it brings us back, like I said, we did some off-road racing, and then we got into Nitro off-road, which this is a very sentimental car to me as well, because this car was my brother's. I think I must have got rid of mine, but it's a Mugen car that was my brother's, and unfortunately my brother's passed away as well. But all of this stuff is just, it's a really nostalgic thing for me, because this brings me back memories when I raced with my brother. So yeah, it's very interesting now that now racing like at Thompson's and stuff, and you hear the saying about making Nitro racing great again. Obviously it goes with the themes of what's going on around these days, but made me think about how it was in the past, right? So then it's been popped up a couple of times about people bringing these sprint cars back out. People have actually been digging up some of the old Custom Works cars and kind of reviving them and running them again. There's a very few. And then there's the thought about now bringing back the sprint cars to race again. The closest thing that I've ever got to a sprint car was this little ugly thing, which at the time for me was really, really cool, because we were just messing around. We had this little it's a little off in the truck, four-wheel drive, and it has a gas motor in it. We put some little foam tires on it. I just put an exo cage on it, put a wing on it, and I drove it like this. And obviously these cars have been sitting around for a long time, so that I've not done them any justice. But as you can see, if anybody really knows, before VP Fuels got involved. Just Nitro Juice, Mike Patel, great off-road old school racer. So at those times I was running around with them in off-road. So Nitro is in my blood from a long time ago. Now, I was approached one time about having an opportunity to maybe putting together a car. Obviously with the SJD brand, we have acquired the equipment that we use now to cut chassis, and it was brought up and we did a conversation. Unfortunately, I don't want to get into details of that, but unfortunately we just were not able to come to an agreement on that. And they move on, they've created a brand and everything, and that's great. I never really got to meet this person. Then I finally met him at Thompson's not too long ago. And, I let him know I was really looking forward to, obviously, because for me, it was just something that I used to do back when I was younger with my brother and my family. It means basically what all of this RC stuff for me means is everything that it's meant to me. My brother passed, the owner of the hobby shop in Corsicana passed. He was a really good friend of ours who's helped us out dearly. And to be honest, back then we weren't so fortunate to be financially just to be able to grab everything, but he always worked with us and we had a great relationship, and he showed us with this about that. And then when we were doing the off-road racing and stuff, my brother and I, were doing, and then when I lost my brother, the off-road community, the RC community at the time, went to my brother's funeral. It was really, so, and then, BJ, and then my buddy, Silky. So it's just all these memories, and that's what RC really means to me. So then, back to now to talk about making these cars again. And then I'm like, you know what? I think I want to build one. Now, for other people, there's big hopes and people want to make them, and that's awesome. But for me, financially, I just want to have fun with my friends, create great memories. I've had a conversation with my son that right now you may not know it, but later in the past, you're going to remember this, and it's going to say something that, hey, I used to do this. And that's something that, you can't pay for, and something you can't just buy. So I came up, finally, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead. I think I want to build one. So obviously for me, I don't think I've opened this thing up. This thing has a really nice OS motor in it. Now, obviously the pipe is nice and chromed and everything, but that's beside the fact. It was a really good setup, and I don't even remember the specifics about this, but this is a dynamite little tune pipe with this OS 12, and it worked perfect with this car. And for how old it is, even before I got it, it was still fairly a little bit old, but this is over almost 30 years old. I still have, at that time, LiPo batteries were coming in. When I got my Traxxas Stampede, I mean, even then, when I was racing these cars, before we got the Spectrum, we were running those radios with the antennas. I mean, we were all fishing out there on the driver's stand. So, unfortunately, I'm telling you my age now, but it's been around and it's awesome. So I really, really have the urge to build a car. So obviously I don't want to take this car apart. It is still, and other than being dusty and stuff, it's in very, very good condition. The motor still turns over, still feels like it has good compression. I did check it before I turned it. Before we used to run these, we put run after oil in it, and really I would put the 3-in-1 machine, like sewing machine oil into it. And that's just what we knew in the past, and that's what we were told. So it leads me to today. So I got to do something. So let's jump over to the workbench over here, and I'll show you kind of what we're thinking about. So I'll see you over there. All right, guys. So back over here in the bench, I got the car here. The RCG10. A nice little car, even though I'm pretty sure the motor will probably run. I'm not sure yet. I have not tried it or anything. Obviously, I would probably have to clean the gas tank or get a new gas tank or something. But I didn't want to take this car apart because it has just a lot of sentimental value to me, and it is just it's in the state that it was from in the past, right? So I don't really want to mess with it. Now, the good thing about this car, though, Associated has come back out and is starting to make these cars again. And from obviously there's probably some updates and stuff, but on the chassis side of things, but for the transmission and everything, it kind of looks the same. Now, I don't know specifically. Now, I don't know specifically what the gearing and what it is compared to the new one, this car stuff, but I just don't want to mess with this car. And then at the same time, I don't know what's going to happen in regards to if this is just a little quick thing, or is Nitro Racing going to be sticking around for a while. So my thought process, I kind of want to keep it budget friendly. So now to get one of those RCGT10 cars, the new ones is probably looking around $400 to $500, maybe $400 on a main, which is fine. But basically, I would just only want to use the transmission and the motor mount. Basically it. So instead of going that route, I was looking on Facebook Marketplace. You know, I've been able to score some pretty good deals there, and then I did come across this person who had an RCGT10 truck. It looked like it was complete. So I hit him up. I went over there to Cleburne, and I actually met up with the fella, and he actually had quite a bit of them. Now, he had one that was pretty much ready to run. It had the motor. It had a nice Bluehead OS motor on it, the 12. But then I started looking around, you know, and basically when you start looking at this car's parts availability. So for me, it was very critical that I got a car that was in pretty good condition. So I started wiggling on the transmission, on the top shaft and stuff. And unfortunately, it just seemed like it had a lot of play. And for me, I want to run this thing and primarily race this thing. So to me, that was a red flag. I didn't want to jump on it. Now, obviously, I think he wanted like $400 or $500 for the car. And honestly, it probably wasn't a bad deal. But at the same time, I just don't know what I was going to get into. And to have $400 is something that may not be any good. I don't know. So he had, like I mentioned, he had like 4 or 5 of these cars. And then he also had a couple of rollers. Some of the rollers, one of them he told me it was an NXT or something, but to me it looked like the GTX that I used to have. So I didn't want to go down that deal. It was a low-C. And then I ran across a couple of the RCT GTNs, but some of them had some different aftermarket plates, a lot of blue stuff on it. I didn't know it was like a team car. I didn't want to go down that route. It was more money. And then he finally came across this other car. It was basically 3 wheels with the transmission and a motor mount. Basically what I needed. So we made a deal. I got this car for was it maybe $75, $50, $75. Now it doesn't look much because it's not much, but the same thing, it had the key components that I needed. Now this car was together, but I took it apart. Basically had the main components that I needed, which was the transmission, which everything is really tight. The outdrives don't look like they're worn anything from and then the def felt decent, right? For however old this car is. And then it also has the motor mount and the transmission mount, whatever, for the brake assembly. And basically the only other thing that I would probably need on this car was the chassis. And I don't need it to make it the physical car, but I just need it for confirmation about my holes were in the right spot. So basically, I took all the back end off. We don't need that. And basically, I got the transmission, started making some measurements on it. Same thing goes for the motor mount and transmission mount. Basically the motor mount, and then the chassis. So the chassis was basically just for a point of reference. So what we did was we hopped onto the computer, onto AutoCAD, went ahead and started taking some measurements, and then we started making some cuts. So let me show you the computer and kind of what I've come up with. All right, guys, so bear with me. There's probably a glare on here. So I pretty much brought up the program here. Let's see if I can see here. So basically, there you have, I pretty much cut out the as you can see, I pretty much cut out. These are all the holes right here for the motor mount, flywheel, and then I have some here for the transmission. So basically we went ahead and made the cuts, right? And then we ended up going to the laser and made some cuts. All right, so we went over to the laser and we went ahead and cut this out of cardboard. Now, with my buddy Silky, you know, when he was doing all the cutouts and stuff for him, and I remember going to his house, he would have carbon fiber plates and stuff laying around. And because it was all trial and error, unfortunately, with what he had, he could only do trial and error basically on carbon. For me, I've been blessed to be able to have a lot of different tools here in the shop, and even some of the tools that you don't even know about yet. But one of the biggest key for me is a laser. The laser cuts accurate just as much as anything. So basically anything I cut out of laser, and I can transfer it over to my router and the CNC, whatever, and it makes all the cuts that we wanted. So basically we went over here, we lined up the transmission, the motor mount, everything lines up. I compared this to the chassis and everything lines up. And then for me, the thought process for me is like, you know what? And now I need components. I got the transmission. I can't necessarily, I probably could, but I don't want to use the components of the rear suspension of the car or anything like that, because what I want to do is use some of the stuff that we have now, which is adjustable rear arms. Basically my thought process to use a Traxxas platform. So my thought process is I have a couple of sprint cars here. This is Silky's old car, so I don't want to tear apart Silky's old car. It does have a different wings and stuff from whatever I got from Silky, but this is Silky's old car, which is a Triple P Evolution car. It's been a really good car, but it's custom works based. But then I have the other car, so I'm like, you know what? Either way, it's the same car. It's the same chassis, so I can get the other car, take the front half off, the rear half off, and then I can use the transmission, not the transmission, but the rear suspension and the front suspension, and call it a day, and then somehow incorporate everything together. So what we did, so we went from there. I did some measurements of the car, of all the custom work stuff, where everything mounts up, and then we went ahead and transferred over. And this also has, right now, has the hose cut out for the custom works mounting stuff, integrated with the sprint car. So then what we go from there is for me to see how everything lines up. What I do is I go ahead and cut everything out, either a piece of acrylic or a piece of wood, so it can be rigid, mounted, and so we can see how it fits up. So let me put that together, and then we'll jump right back into it. All right, guys, so we put together, we put everything on here on this piece of wood. Everything lines up as intended. So now we're like, okay, we have transmission and everything mounted up. Everything lines up according to the chassis that we have here. So everything looks good. Now there's some decisions, right? We've talked about, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and put the rear suspension of the car, and honestly, that's the easy part. So then my next dilemma was, all right, so what are we gonna do about motor, power plant? Off the rip, I'm thinking OS speed, baby. Let's get one. But, you know, OS $600, $700 motor, that's a lot of motor, and you know, it's been a minute. So I'm thinking, you know, I need to go a little bit, we're thinking about budget here. So then I'm thinking, you know what? I know that Thompson's Chris has mentioned about some motor that they were thinking about running, or they've been running. So I hollered at him, and then he hooked me up. Not necessarily hooked me up, but he got me ordered a little 12 motor here. It's an SH engine. I've heard a lot of good things about it, but then also I've heard a lot of recommendations. For me, I wanted to go with the budget motor, which $134.99, so basically $135 and some change with taxes, right? So we went ahead and got this motor. So obviously I already opened it up. I put some covers on it so no dirt get in it. He did give me a RCT G10 clutch and a bell, but looking at this, I'm not sure if it's going to work, but it is a power plant. So we're going to go ahead and put this on with the rest of the car, and then we'll see how that fits here. So basically, we have some alignment issues here. So let me put this screw in real quick. Now, obviously it's been a long time since I've run Nitro stuff, and then obviously looking at how the clutch assembly is set up on these older cars, you know, there's shimming and stuff involved with the bell housing. So I think there's going to be an issue with this flywheel, because it's way up in the air, and looking at the other ones, they look like they're a little bit taller, so this one might be a little too small. So we're going to change it out. Not only that, I did miss a little bit when it comes to the motor mount. I'm not sure if it's because the new designs or basic, I don't know. So we're going to have to reposition the motor a little bit over, so that's not a big deal. So then, you know, I started looking at the rear suspension of this car, and then I put the cardboard piece on the bottom side of this, and I started doing some measurements and stuff like that, and it just seems like there's going to be some work to be done to get it to fit properly. And not only that, the arms where they're at is going to cause a problem for the spur gear that these cars require. Now it's, I believe it's a 48 pitch, not 48, 30, 32 pitch spur pinion clutch bell. So the spur gears are considerably larger, and I did have it here. I took it out somewhere. So it's going to cause a problem for the arms. So then the arms are where the arms mount for the pivot point here in the black, the blocks, it's going to create a problem. So, you know, I was to a stopping point. Now, obviously, I've done a lot of this work already in the background, and I've kind of got myself prepared, and I started doing a couple of things. The thing is, it's for me to audio, video, and all this stuff, it takes a lot of time, and in reality, I'm trying to figure this out. So some of the questions that I have with the motor and stuff is, what clutch assembly do I need to run? Obviously, he gave me a flywheel from his GTX, and then he gave me some clutches that come from, not the GTX, the RCT and GT, and he also gave me some clutches and a flywheel nut that doesn't work. Obviously, in the past, I think the cranks were a little bit shorter, and it's just not going to work, and the clutch is a non-spring clutch. So I started looking on A-Main, and I saw a ProTech clutch under there I want to try. So I've ordered that, so I'm waiting for the clutch to come in so I can properly see how this is going to work out. Now, one of the biggest concerns I have is obviously the arms and stuff, and then I started thinking about parts availability. If I tear this thing up, what am I gonna do? So, you know, I put it up for a couple of days, and I started thinking, started looking around, and then I, you know, I'm like, man, the original plan that I had spoke with the other gentleman that wanted to initially do this with me was talking about putting this on a Custom Works Rocket 5 car, which is basically what this is. And I didn't really start looking at it. And not only that, you know, if you want to integrate the original motor mounts, because of the way they are, it's going to cause even more problems. So I'm thinking, so then now I'm going to have to look at different motor mounts that I know they sell. But for me, I'm just trying to stick to a budget. But at this point, I'm kind of realizing that maybe I need to go in a different direction. So, but for now, basically this is lined up. And then, you know, I started looking around. I was also putting some maintenance into the 5.1 late model that we just got. So I was working on that, putting it back to stock. And then I have this car standing beside me while I'm working on this car, and I started thinking. Let me check it out. So this is the Bullet. The Bullet is a car that I bought at the beginning or end of the year. I can't remember, not too long ago. And then I started looking at it. It has a severely offset chassis. That's a high bite car. And then I started thinking,